Hello friends, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Marta, if this is your first video, and I am sitting here with a giant pot of honeycomb today. I'm going to render this into wax. I'm very excited. The disappointing news is I have all this comb because my bees did not make it through the winter. This is my first year as a beekeeper. I'm keeping bees in a top bar hive. And I knew the colony was weak going into the winter. They had stored very little honey. They'd drawn a lot of comb, didn't have much honey. I fed my bees throughout the fall because I could tell they didn't have enough honey stores. And I also gave them fondant in the winter. But what did them in was that week of the Arctic freeze nationwide that I think was in late January. So I checked on them the day before the temperatures dropped and gave them more fondant, but by the end of that week, they had all died. But I think I know how to do better this year. I want to get my colony started earlier. I started this colony late. For now, I'm going to make the best of things by rendering this wax, which I'm pretty excited about. I know I could have saved the comb and given it to the next colony because I am getting a new one this summer. But if you look at my hive, you'll see that I have two different sizes of top bars, two different widths. And that's because some of these came from a secondhand hive that I had to move into a new hive. And the narrow bars are bars that I don't want to use anymore. I don't like their size, and there was too much cross-combing with them. So I took the comb off of all of the narrow bars and left the comb on the new wider bars so I can give it to the next colony. So let me show you this pot. So some of this comb looks pretty new. Some of it was older. All of it is sadly lacking in honey, which was surely the problem. So I'm going to break some of this up with my hands, and then I'll start the rendering process. This comb is pretty nicely broken up now. I love seeing this beautiful pot. So I'm going to fill this with water and make sure that I cover it generously. Heavy. Oh, that is a heavy pot. All right, I'm going to turn the stove on and bring this to a boil, which is likely going to take some time. We have finally reached a rolling boil. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit. This has now been boiling for 30 minutes, and it kind of looks like a pile of dark sludge. But I see this golden color on the edge here where I wiped off my spoon after stirring. And I really hope that's the color of the final product, because that's really beautiful. I'm going to take this outside to strain it. I am too scared of spilling anything in this kitchen. Oh. This thing is heavy. That is a little terrifying because I just carried that across carpet. And if any of this spilled, it would just ruin it forever. I should probably find a different way to do this next time, or do the whole thing outside. But let's strain this. As I was pouring this, I noticed a few intact pieces of honeycomb, and so I think if I did this again, I would be sure to boil it longer. There weren't many pieces. I think I really broke down the majority of the wax. When I researched this process, I saw different recommendations for how long to boil. Some said 30 minutes, some said an hour, others said boil until the wax appears melted. After straining the last of the wax mixture, I placed the bucket in my garage so that it wouldn't catch any ambient dust or bugs as it cooled. I left it here to cool overnight, and the garage was much colder than outside, which I believe caused the wax to contract and crack a little bit, but that's not a problem. As it cools, the wax floats to the top and the honey water mixture sinks to the bottom, so that allows me to peel the wax off, and then I can process it one more time by boiling it, melting it down again, and straining it once more. You'll see that some of the debris from the water mixture stuck to the bottom of the wax, and it was really loose and easy to remove, so I just ended up gently rinsing this mixture underwater. That way I had a cleaner substance to process for the second round of heating and filtering. For the second round of heating and filtering, the wax is gently melted through a double boiler setup or a bain-marie setup. I simply used a ball jar in hot water. I really aimed to heat it up slowly so that it melts to an even consistency. When it was all melted, I poured it into a silicone muffin tray and filtered it one last time. If I was going to do this again, I would filter it through something with a slightly finer weave, something like a fine mesh cheesecloth or pantyhose. So here's my wax cake. The color is beautiful, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping for more wax. As evidence, here is the glass container that I was hoping to fill with wax to make a candle. So clearly I need a new plan. After thinking about it and looking into some things, instead of a candle, I'm gonna make some wax food wraps. In order to make some wax food wraps, I need 100% cotton cloth, and I was looking around my house. I don't sew, so I don't keep fabric on hand, but what I found I'm super excited about. This is something my grandma gave me when I was a kid. So she told me that this was a flour sack and that she used to like to do the shopping with her dad when he bought flour or feed for their animals, because the fabric from those sacks is what would become her dresses. And she gave me this. Here, I'll show you. It's folded up. It's 4 times this size. But she gave me this, and my adult self is not a saver. But fortunately, my kid self was. And so this was in a box in the basement of things of mine that I just haven't looked at in a long time. So I'm going to turn this into some food wraps. I think she'd love that this was being used again. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. I used a pastry brush to distribute the wax, making sure there are no white spots on the fabric. And then finally, I gave the wax a little wave to dry it off or cool it off, and the wax hardened within seconds, and the wrap was done. The larger wrap for the mixing bowl was too large to be spread out on the pan, so I folded it in half, melted wax on the top half, spread that wax around, and then flipped it over and did the same process on the other side. Leave it to dry it off. Well, that gave me 2 beeswax wraps. So I've got this sweet little one that's going to be a snack wrap. My daughter's in preschool, and so I can use this to send a snack with her. I folded that long strip in half, and then the edges folded inside, and now I've got this pocket. I often send pistachios as her snack, so I can put pistachios in here and fold this over, and it's ready to go. And then the other one I have is larger. I wanted to make this to the size that it would cover a bowl I commonly use. So I'll show you how it fits on that. It can just sit on top. It's not quite sticky enough that I can make it adhere to itself, but it will absolutely rest well enough to cover something to keep dust and just air out of it. I probably wouldn't use this to cover something that I need a tight seal on, like a liquid, but if I have a leftover salad, something like that, this can go over it. And then I can use these over and over and over again. So I love that this flour sack is getting a new life as beeswax wraps for us. I have a new appreciation now for the price of beeswax items. I've definitely been at a farmer's market before and looked at a table that has a beeswax candle, and I love how it looks, but the price is too much for me. And now that I've seen what honeycomb renders down into, I can understand why these things are priced as they are. They are precious. Thank you for joining me in this process of rendering my very first wax. If you're interested in more beekeeping videos, I've placed a deposit on a 5-frame nuke that I'll be getting later this spring. So I will show the process of taking those 5 frames and adapting them and installing them into the top bar hive. So stay tuned for that. And of course, if you are interested in more videos on gardening and establishing our little homestead and preserving food and cooking from scratch, please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to sharing more of my projects with you next week. Until then, bye.